Hi everyone, welcome to STE Skills. Um, so this is a weekly system design session. Like the format of this weekly session at 9 a.m. PST is we have a mock interview in 1 week and a deep dive on any system design topic on another week. So this week we are having a mock interview, and if you like to be part of this mock interviews, or would you like to present a specific topic so that like you can learn and we all can learn together as a community, and this is a volunteer driven, so please feel free to ping me in Discord. And so with this, like, I'll hand over the forum to Asim and Adi. So today Asim is going to act as an interviewer and Adi is an interviewee. So this is just a mock interview. So we all listen towards like a 50 plus minutes, about 50 minutes, to see like how Asim and Adi are doing. And then we'll all collectively provide feedback later in the session. And we can continue to chat via chat like for any questions. Okay. So this Asim and Adi, please take over. Adi, would you like to share your screen?
Yeah, Naga.
Asim, please go ahead.
Yeah. Hey Aditya, hi.
Hey, hi, Asim. Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, thanks. I'm good. So, for this interview, can you see the screen sketchboard?
Yeah, I can see that.
Okay.
I think you're
And
sharing. Yeah.
to write some talks, I'm using Google Doc, and later
Mhm.
I can maybe share or do something with this. So I'll be changing between these two tabs every now and then.
Okay. As long as you're comfortable with juggling around the requirements and
Yeah.
your sketchboard, I'm fine with that.
Okay.
Okay. So Aditya, today we are trying to solve one design situation where I want to design a auto suggestion or a typeahead control. So when I say auto suggestion or typeahead, you might have been on google.com, where
Okay.
it's like a popular search engine, and you type a word like, let's say you type A, it will give you like some suggestions. A could be America, or A could be Asim, or A could be like anything which can start from A. So give me
Okay.
some suggestions. Hey, you want to try this, and then I can type more, and it will give me some different suggestions.
Okay. Sure, Asim. So I understood like you want to have some sort of like an auto suggestion system, right?
Hmm.
So how I'd like to proceed is I'd like to think of it in some sort of like a template. So whenever I'm writing something, I will circle back with you to see whether we are on the right track. So the first thing initially what I would like to is to check with the functional requirement, right?
Okay.
So in the functional requirement, the system should be able to provide the auto suggestions, right? I'm using auto suggestion as a term for our discussion.
Okay.
Auto suggestion. So asking like, should we return like, is there any need that we should return like top 5 or top 3, something like that?
I
Top
think
5 is
you
maximum
can pick
result.
up a number. I'm fine with at least it
Okay.
should be more than 5. I am fine with either taking 5 or 10.
Okay. Yeah, let's keep it 5 for our discussion, right? So that it's easy for us to brainstorm as well.
Okay.
Should we
I'm fine with that.
provide top 5 matching results, right? Uh, so these are the two functional requirements. Now I just want to briefly touch base on my non-functional, correct? Non-functional requirements. So as you know, as in that this system, it's essentially an auto suggestion, and you gave me an example of Google, right? So that gives me an idea that this system should be highly available, right? There is no doubt about that.
Okay. Yeah.
Available once this is highly available, the next two items that I'd like to consider is system should be consistent in results, correct,
Mm-hmm.
and also reliable, right? I want to kind of bucket them into a single bucket, both of these items, consistency and reliability, into one for now, correct? Let me do that, and I would like to discuss with you on the some of the assumptions, right? So once you told me that auto suggestion, right? I would
Mm-hmm.
like to some suggestions or like an restrictions on my system. So some of them are like, for example, in any of these cases, I don't want to use any of the historic details of the user, right? Just to be fair enough for our discussion, it might lead to a different type of problem to solve.
Mm-hmm.
So for current system, no need of using any personalization, correct? Or any sort of like a previous browsing history or something like that, right? Because most of these search engines usually have some sort of like a cookie stored on their on the local system, and they pretty well know what a, end user is trying to search, and they try to filter their results, right? So I just want to remove all those parameters. So if I'm searching from either from California or from India or from anywhere, there should not be some sort of like any filtering. I should be getting consistent results from anywhere whenever I type A, A as a keystroke or APP as my keystroke, right? I should be getting the required results. So this is just like one assumption that I'm trying to have it on my system. Now, as in like once we have our functional and non-functional descriptions and also some sort of like an assumptions, right? So the auto suggestion itself, I would like to break into like three parts, correct? The
Okay.
entire system uh, can be broken into actually two parts, right? So let me not go with the third one. The third one is mostly into the machine learning side, and I'll discuss that as well. So the first part is providing the results, right? Providing the results of auto system, and the other part is populating the results, correct? So asking like when you told me about this auto suggestion, the first thing that came on top of my mind is from the data structures point of view, the best data structure
I
that we
think,
can.
hold on.
Yeah.
Uh, I think we never spoke about when you say five matching results. I want to step back just to make sure you understood like what we are trying to solve. You might have a context, but I just want to be on the same page.
Okay.
So you made an assumption that, okay, we'll not use personalization history, but I don't see assumption what will drive then the top five results.
What will?
Drive the top five results.
Yeah,
Like,
correct.
yeah, so how, if I put A, how,
Correct.
what, there could be like millions of words start with A. How you will
Correct.
tell me like top, which are the top five? Like what criteria are you thinking? I didn't find in any of your assumption or requirement.
Yes. So what I'm trying to consider here is like I just want to consider it from an overall end user point of view. So when I type a keystroke A, right, I
Hmm.
just don't want to see the results what I'll be getting. I don't want to show the different results when you type A. So
No,
whenever we do,
no, that is not the question. I understood that, but what you will show, like, okay, you will show consistent. How you will compute the consistent results? My question is that what criteria are you thinking? You told like you won't use personalization, or I'm fine with that, but still, now what you will be considering?
so the way how I'm thinking right now is like I wanted to go with an approach of try here, Asif,
No, no,
right?
that's fine. I'm not jumping on that. I'm still trying to figure it out. Like we are on the same page. So my understanding right now, looking at this, you are considering like whatever is searched heavily, like it's like whatever searched heavily, you will show it. I think that's how. If I have to build myself or Google, that's what. If somebody, if let's say Donald Trump is searched heavily and somebody put DON, then it will show Donald Trump in the start.
Correct.
So that's what I was trying to understand. Like, what is your criteria? Like, are you going with the count?
Yeah, so I'm just going with the count, like what is
Yeah,
heavily
so I think then you should call out somewhere an assumption or requirement then.
okay. Let me do that.
Because I see you made assumption you are not going personalization, but I want to see what then driving your matching results.
Okay. So I kind
Sounds
of
good.
had that in my system and in the functional requirement itself, like which of them is like heavily search.
Yeah, so I want some criteria which will drive me to give my top 5. Okay, so
Uh,
sounds good.
okay.
Okay, let's further. And
So
okay,
as I was discussing earlier, Asim, right? I'd like to consider from the data searches point of view, right? We all know for the auto suggestion, the best candidate would be like try, correct?
why?
So how I'd like to drive forward the next discussion is like in the first part that I have written here, right, providing the results, that is providing the results from the try, correct? And the second part is how do we actually populate this try? Because this system has to continuously learn from the inputs that are given by the users, right? It's not just like one time we build the try and things will work for a long time, right? Sometimes the results might not be available immediately. Let's say assume that there is a keystroke for Eiffel Tower, right? EIFFI type, but I don't get any results. But this EIFF keyword will then further process into something in the background that will do some indexing or some searching, and then it will try to inject that back into my original try. So the next time any user types EIF, they will definitely be getting the Eiffel Tower as their search results, correct? So I'm just trying to divide this entire system into two parts right now. So one is like providing the results with the help of the try, and the second part is like populating the results or populating this entire try as my data structure. There's one more aspect that I'd like to cover if time permits. It's something called as like a knowledge graph, and that is something which is being, in my opinion, heavily used in most of the search engines for
Mhm.
auto suggestions. So if time permits, I will also briefly touch base upon that. But
I'm fine. You can take any approach, but my use case is simple. Like,
yeah,
and I think I also want to mention here. This is like a heavily search system.
yeah,
So think about you are getting a lot of traffic. If you want to discuss numbers, I'm fine, but I just want to give you a heads up. I'm going to send a lot of traffic. Think like every second or a minute, a lot of queries would be hitting that.
yeah. So I'd like to consider this to be a read-heavy system, right? Uh, because every time we will be having more queries or something like that, right? So on top of my head, I don't have like any some numbers what exactly Google or other things use. But for our discussion, what I'd like to consider is we'll be having like at least like 3,000 queries per second. That many hits, or that's the traffic that we might be expecting. So do you think that would be a correct range of numbers that we are having here?
I'm fine with this, but think like this can grow. And when you say read heavy system, then what do you mean actually?
Yeah. So read heavy system. So like for any of the website, like for example Google, right? The one component is just this auto suggestion, right? So this auto suggestion, we are the number of times we type in the keystrokes, the results that we are getting is more high, or it's
No,
comparatively higher.
agree with that. But when you're writing, I thought this is like a two-way system. When you search something, that also becomes a write operation.
So if the result already exists in the try, right? So we will be
Uh-huh.
just updating that result, right? If it is not there, then only we will update our tries.
No,
So
then, so let's say on day one, somebody searched Donald. Like I launched this, and then again 10 other people search Donald. That means that search is going up. You would be maintaining that thing somewhere, right?
Yes, correct. So that will be taken care in like populating the results, right? Like how are we going to
So that
what is
means
the
whatever is searched is also have a reflection on your count. So that means it is also contributing to your count. So I see both is like a read and write heavy at the same time.
okay, yeah, sure.
No,
In
like
if
I'm
you
just trying to understand, like we are on the same page, or might be you have a different idea. I.
so
Mhm.
uh, the way when I thought about reading to be it a read heavy system is just while providing the results. If a particular keystroke is not there in the results, then it goes to the different system
No,
or like
if it is
where
all,
we
if
are
it is if it is there also, what will happen if it is there? Nothing. You won't do anything with that.
So essentially, we'll be just incrementing the count, seeing that
Uh-huh.
okay, this particular keystroke is
Mm-hmm.
being used one more time
Uh-huh.
again. Right? So
Uh-huh.
if I have some sort of like ranking system, this will bubble up. That particular keystroke will
So,
bubble up.
so basically, when I write Dawn, so two things are happening. It is telling me that, or let's say I'm writing Donald. So two things happened. Anything which has suggestion for Donald, it will return. So that is your write operation. Then then I'm also maintaining somewhere like, okay, Donald is now getting searched more. So that reflect like a write operation to me.
Okay, yeah, correct. So in that aspect, it's like both read and write heavy. I was just thinking in terms of providing the results. So not exactly considering the counts for now. But
Okay.
yeah, I kind of agree with what you're saying.
No,
So
but
I'd
the
like
crux of the system is like I want that result which is heavily searched. So uh, like that's why I'm trying to bring this point. I'm fine. You have a different idea, but that's what like my my rational looking your requirements and how you will be doing.
yeah,
But okay,
sure.
but okay, I was just trying to give a heads up. Like this is like a really heavily used system at every, like you also mentioned, QPS is like 3,000. It can even go more beyond that.
Yeah,
So think
it was
think in
about that.
that way while considering your approach. That's what I was trying to bring up.
Sure, Asim. I'll definitely take this one aspect during my further discussions, right? So we just now discussed what are the some of the scales that we are going to use. So in the subsequent discussion, what I'll be considering a single server architecture first, so that we understand, so that I can put forth what are my thoughts on how to build those single servers, and then we will discuss more on how can we scale it up further, right?
Mhm.
So as I was saying that I intend to use try for my providing the results, right? So
Mhm.
quickly here, tries, right? So I was thinking of considering a try. So let's for this point of discussion, we'll assume that the try is already built for us,
Mhm. Mhm.
and if I want to have some sort of like search CAT or something like that, right? The user will type C, and let me switch back here to my board so that it will be easy.
Mhm.
So this would be my try, right? So here I have C, correct? I have A, and then here I have my T, correct?
Okay.
Cat, and next is CATCH. Next is CA or CO. Let's take a different character. CO W, like cow, right? Some sort of like an animal or something like that, right? So now, let's say that we all know how exactly try works, right? So first time we will say that the keyword is C, and if my search criteria is to return the file results, right? The way how I want to customize this try is for every node I'll be kind of keeping a track of what are the top 5 words at this particular node, right? If it is like an end of word, that's also has to be considered. So let me go to this parent node for now, right? So here, if you look at it, C80 is one, correct? And one more is COW, that is the second one. So I can store both the C80 and COW as part of this try node structure. So whenever a keystroke for C comes, it will immediately look into its data structure to see which are the top 5 words, and it will just return back those 5 results immediately to the user. So this is one
Uh,
improvisation that I was
Hold
thinking.
on. What you are saying, like you will put top. So at level of C only, you are putting CAT, SCAT, and CWD, both of them.
Yes.
Okay. And if
So at
there,
that,
Mhm.
yeah.
So let's say you have one more thing, C, let's say some other thing, COW.
I have COW here.
Oh,
Like,
sorry,
do you?
COW. One we can take something more CDA.
Okay, sure.
Okay. So now let's say we are only building for top two, then you will maintain the top two at sea level. So let's say our
Correct.
system is only doing top two, just to make it simple. I don't want to keep on writing a lot of new nodes. So wanting to keep, so idea is like keep C80 and COW at sea level only.
Yes.
And if CDA started searching more, then you will remove COW and put CDA there. Is the idea?
Correct. Yes. Correct.
Okay.
I'm assuming some sort of like a system in the backend, like a background task or something, which will also take into consideration what is the current count. So we were discussing that if a keyword, right, like DON is being heavily used, it will bubble up, right? So based on that, this particular try will be essentially modified every now and then, correct? So based on that, I want to maintain it at that particular node, or like let's say like a parent node, uh, to have a quicker lookup. That's the whole uh, point of this
So,
maintaining in the list.
so if I send CA, then that means like A would be holding anything beyond
Yeah.
that.
Yes, anything beyond that, right? So all this auto suggestion essentially should be as quick as possible, right? If it takes a lot of time to traverse this try and then get back the results, then user will be, they will not be even able to appreciate the system, right? So the main aspect of auto suggestion is to come up with a quicker results, and one way to solve this problem is by storing them at like a parent node, like top k results, right? And whenever a hit comes there, we just return that immediately. So that will kind of stop me from traversing further down this try.
Okay. And but looks like your try would be really heavy.
Yeah, that is true. So try will definitely be, so that's why it's not just like a simple try. I would like to consider, so this is just like an improvisation, and yes, this try would definitely be heavy, and this is the next point that I wanted to bring into a discussion, right? uh, so let me take one step back here. So let's assume that in the beginning, we are not having that much traffic, right? We are just having very limited traffic. So
Okay.
all of this can be in like one try, correct? And that try can be in memory. That's totally fine. It can really work.
Okay.
But as
I
and
also
when,
want to take a step back. Can you show me like how your system, like
yeah,
something
sure.
like high
Let
level? I'm fine
Yeah,
if you're considering like with us, very like on a day one we have very less traffic, and I'm fine with starting
yeah,
with that.
yeah.
Uh,
So just give me a second so that I'll adjust the screen and I'll show you. Correct?
sure, sure, sure. Please take your time.
It moves here so that I'll get some time. So sure, let me take this would be like an end user, right? So they'll be typing. So then let me consider a simple web server now,
Mm-hmm.
for instance, right? So this would be my web server, and let's, for simplicity, right? I'm considering one of my tries here. correct? And
Okay.
I'll say it's my try node, or yeah, this is some sort of like my try node 1, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if this is the case, let me draw some lines here. Um, So the first request for the auto suggestion comes here, right? So I'm just kind of removing all the other terms of in the distributed systems like load balancer, etc., for our discussion now. But I'll go ahead and address them as well in our further discussion, right?
Sure, sure, sure.
So the request comes for our web server, then the web server will consult my try immediately, right? So this try, what it will do is, let me, okay. So this try, oh, where it went, okay. So this try node, right? Essentially, the try I had towards my left side of my screen, correct, left top. What it will do is it will consult this try node as a server, right? So I'm not having exact try node here. So let me write something extra here.
Mm-hmm.
Let me say that there is a try node a service, right? This
Mm-hmm.
service will make use of this try node essentially, right?
Okay.
Essentially I just can't directly query it. So what I'll do is I will have a service, and this service will essentially look into my try node and provide me the results back. This is like a very simple, right? Now as and when the traffic grows, right, or like as and when the number of keystrokes increases, number of items increases in the try, right? So what we are going to do here is the try node, this try node, right, that I'm showing here,
Mm-hmm.
tick mark. So this has to be scaled out, right? So
Mm-hmm.
one of the approach that I was thinking, correct, to have some sort of like a partitioning, right? The data has to be partitioned, or my try has to be divided, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we can say that anything that starts with A and
Mm-hmm.
ends with, let's say, C, right? They'll be in
Mm-hmm.
one try, and anything from D to M goes with another try, right? So I'm just kind of considering an uppercase or lowercase of for discussion. Let's say that I'm using lowercase alphabets, right? And
Mm-hmm.
it can even be scaled to the uppercase, correct? But if I go with this approach, one kind of a blocker that I can immediately see is, let's say that the terms in alphabet E, right? They kind of become more and more, right? Then that particular try node will be more heavy compared to the other try nodes, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So that is one of the like an overcoming blocker I am thinking of. How can we solve that such problem? And also if I'm just going to increase my try nodes, right, like I'm having one more try node here,
Mm-hmm.
and a couple of more here. So what one more, I'll just say tn3 here and tn2 here, right? Try node 2. So what I'm also thinking is asking, is it better like we can do some sort of like hash based partitioning? So each term will be passed to an hash function, and that hash function will tell me which try node to go and fetch the results from. So that is like one more way of mechanism that I want to do. And before even also going and directly hitting to the try node, right, we were talking about 3000 queries per second. So what essentially it means is, it better if we have some sort of like a cache, right? I'd like to call it as in-memory cache, right?
Mm-hmm.
uh, in-memory cache or distributed cache, correct? So first the try-node service will look into the cache to see if the DON term is already there. If it is there, it will directly send it back to the results. So here it's essentially K comma V, right? I'm not going to keep anything more fancier here, right? Just like a keyword and what are its possible results. For example, C came, right? For a keystroke C, the possible results are CAT and COW. So I'll just maintain that key value pair list, and I'll immediately return to my try node service. Now, as and when, let's assume that whatever the term we are going to search is not there in my in memory, then only we will go and look into the actual try, and then finally we will update my cache as well. So I like to have this as a double arrow, and also I like to say that I'll update my cache. once the service is already once the results are provided back to the end user. So now you are with me here?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so as you see here, right, we are kind of increasing the number of try nodes, right? What it also means is we should have one more service, right, which will work, kind of keep the count of the terms that are being counted, right? So for example, we were discussing about DON term, right? And if that particular DON term kind of get incremented every now and then, we should use that count in our subsequent results. So for that, what I'd like to consider is I'd like to consider something like an increment service, which will kind of increment a given keyword if it is being heavily used. And later I can actually, so let me draw an arrow so that this try node will also make use of this increment service whenever it sees a new term, right? So as and when this terms gets incremented, this has to be stored in some sort of like an data store. So for time being, let me put a data store here, and this will increment saying, okay, so this will tell me that, hey, DON got incremented 3 times or like 4 times, etc., right? Then switching back my gears here, right? That will, whatever we just now discussed is all about providing the results. Now, the next part is like, how do we actually populate these results, right? So to populate these results, what essentially we are doing is we are trying to modify our try structures every like 30 seconds or like every 5 minutes or any configurable number of time, right? I'm really not sure what exactly will be used in this search engines like Google, but I believe that there could be something like that. So what, in order to do that, there has to be one more service, right? And that service will kind of update all my these try nodes. So I'd just like to have a service here that says update try service. So what this does is update try service. It will essentially consult what are the new hits from my data store, right? And this data store we can discuss like whether should we be going with a relational or non-relational. I'd like to come back there as well. In my opinion, I believe it's better if you use non-relational, and I'll talk more about that. And whenever we update the service, behind the scene, all of these tries should be updated as well, right? So updating this will be taken up by this update service. So all of these try nodes are kind of up to date with the recent searches so that they know when the new request comes what to serve. Now I'm just like shifting slightly towards my data store, like a database, right? So I told you that every time whenever I'm kind of incrementing my count, I'm storing it in my DB. And so one of the approaches, or one of the uh, data store that I'd like to consider is non-relational. And the reason being non-relational is like we discussed that our system should be like highly available, right? Um, so if you look at from the CAP theorem perspective, having a system which is highly available and also which can work in like partition tolerance, that's typically some NoSQLs like Cassandra, correct? So if we just maintain records or like a and yeah, column based driven, right? So we can say that for this particular keyword, sorry, for this particular keyword, this is the count that I'm seeing. And if at all we want, we can kind of include even the time here, like something like timestamp, right? At this point of time, this keyword had been repeated 1,000 times. On September 19th at 9:40 a.m., term DON was repeated 5,000 times. And subsequently at the next step at 9:40 or 9:45, we can have this different columns, right? And this update service can later internally can retrieve these records. And even while retrieving, it's not really good to directly query the DB. So I'd like to consider something like an uh, database as a database service, right? So I'll say data service, and all the updates and all the reads happens through this service. So I think I need to
Okay, I
modify
think
this.
we can hold on for a second.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
I think we went into a lot of directions, and I want to touch upon a few directions and then expand more now,
Yeah, sure.
but in the interest of time. So I want a scenario when you start on day one, how you will start implementing and what would be the things look like. I want to see your flow for
Okay.
that. Yeah.
Okay, sure. So let's say that our key term is APP, or like uh,
Hmm?
APP, right? Like Apple, for
Yeah.
instance, right?
Yeah.
So I just give my query term as like an Apple. The request comes to my web server.
Hmm.
So since it's going to be my day one, right?
Hmm.
I'm just kind of removing all everything about TN, T3, etc., etc.
Hmm.
Right? I just have this try node as a service and try node. So my request comes to my web server, right?
Hmm.
Um, if there is anything like pre-processing, etc., that needs to be done, that can be done here, like SSL termination or
No,
any other word.
I'm not bothered about that. Let's go
Yeah,
further.
I'm just like hinting it out here. That will be done here. Then the request flows to the try node service, right?
Hmm.
So in the try node service, first we will consult into the memory cache, right? We will see whether
Like say
this.
there is no memory. Let's say there is
Yeah,
no memory.
exactly.
Go
So this
further.
is day one, right? So we will not
No,
get any result.
I'm considering there is no memory component. So I want to focus more on try nodes.
Okay, so then it comes to my try node here, right? So
Hmm.
in my try node, let's say that I have here. I'll just draw try.
So you did like some kind of partitioning, right? This
Correct.
so first thing happened is like you find where it should be.
Yes. So I should figure it out which try nodes to go
Hmm.
and fetch the try,
And
right?
and you
So let's
mentioned it would be based on the uh, on something like all A to all words. You mentioned like all words starting from A and ending with like D
correct.
should be there. What exactly that mean? I didn't get that part.
Okay. Okay. So I told that, right. So what I mean to say is, for example, this try node, right? This will have results starting with A,
Huh.
correct? And let's assume for our discussion anything that starts from D. So all the keywords that are starting from A to D are in this try node,
Okay.
and anything that starts from E
Okay, I got
subsequently.
that point. So
Yeah.
that means
Now,
if there is, do you see any bottleneck or issues with this?
yeah. Yeah, so I think we discussed that, right? So let's say that if e e results, right, e query results are more and more, then there are like too much, what I'd like to say, too much traffic or too much heavy load on this try node, right? So I kind of say that this is not like an optimal approach.
Hmm.
The next approach that we discussed was to have some sort of like partition based on the hash, right? So whatever the keyword that I'll get here, right? For example, APP, this will be converted to a particular hash function, and
Hmm.
that hash will tell me which try node my results are there, right? Now, for our discussion, I would like to go with this partition based, because with this partition based, the data gets equally or uniformly distributed across all the try nodes, right? We are not like bombarding only one try node with all of the data, correct? So we are kind of trying to distribute it, and there are different algorithms that how can we
No,
do that.
I didn't get like how you're distributing. So if I send you app, so
Mhm.
you're just finding out which server it should go, right?
Yes, it will tell me like which server should go over. So that hash
So,
function,
and if I
whatever the,
send you AP, then it might go to a different server. So let's say you have two searches, APP and APPL. What will happen?
so app and app, so ap and app, right? So whatever that hash function we are kind of designing, right, it should consider that we should see A as the main interest of our concern, right? Because we are more interested in considering this entire try, not just APP or AP, right? So this entire try we should be having access to. So whatever that hash function that we are going to use, that should tell me where exactly this try exists, on which node this try exists. So both this AP and APP should essentially be resulting into one try itself. So that should be taken care by the hash function.
So it looks like hash function has a lot of responsibility.
Uh,
So you would be have a lot of try nodes which all so what from here what I understood, all try nodes would start from A to Z, right?
yeah.
And now the hash function has a responsibility to find which try node out of this has APP, like that's
Yes.
what you are mentioning, and that would be uh, and then that should be like I'm not trying to understand like how exactly that will work, like how you would be maintaining that, okay, when APP came and this was my hash function and then I'm going to that node itself, and then something new comes, then you have to find where you will place that. So let's say now I get APPL first time.
Okay.
Now you will figure it out, okay, this should go to some other try node. That's what you are saying, right? Based on your hash function.
So yeah. So we are close to that, but like how I initially thought was like whatever my hash function would be there, right? That will give me the same server node for both APP and APPLE.
Yes, but if your hash function says something different, then your APP and APPLE could end up in two different servers, correct?
That is true. So that's why like I'm kind of inclining to a solution of having
Okay, okay, I'm fine for that for now.
yeah.
Let's go with your approach one, having based on okay. So now how you will handle so if one node goes down, how you will so for example, your first node is from A to D. If that goes down,
Yeah.
how you will handle that?
Yeah. So I was coming to that next part of like scalability, right? So each of these trinodes, definitely there is a possibility that anything can fail in the distributed systems, right? So the best way to kind of do the scalability here is to have a redundancy. So I can have something like an buddy trinode here. If this particular trinode fails, this trinode server will take it up, correct? And in a distributed fashion, right? In a distributed systems, all of this have to be monitored, or there has to be some sort of like an zookeeper who will keep track on which all nodes are currently active and which of them are down. If that is the case, whether should we send the traffic to such nodes or not? So that is definitely one of the viable solution that I'm thinking of. If one of these trinode fails, the buddy will take over that, and there is definitely a redundancy. And whenever this update try service updates, right, it will update both these nodes, try node 1 and it's also its buddy server. So it's completely taken care with that aspect by replication and by redundancy. So I'd like to see
Are you
here.
not considering uh, having so these again will be both in the memory, right?
Which one?
Both of
Try.
them, Trinode one and what you wrote, busy Trinode one.
Sorry, it will be buddy. Sorry, my mistake.
Okay, okay, no problem. So both of them still holding the data in the memory, correct?
Yeah. So for now, our discussion, what I'm kind of considering Asim is like this: both will be in a different system, but they will be in memory. So let's say that we can have both the buddy and the trinode in the same data center, correct? And let's say that if one of them fails, there will be another one, and we can have one more replication which is outside of this data center. So I'm even though if they are considering only in memory, I'd like to put them into a system where there is no any other operation. It's going to be like everything is in memory, and it's a huge memory. That's how I'd like to consider it.
Okay. And now I see like you have both read and write operations happening on the same try node. Would that impact anything?
Uh, so here is the thing, right? So I told that all of my try updates happens through this update try services, correct?
Yeah. Then
So
somewhere you update try node. So let's talk about that.
yeah, so let me go over that as well, right? So APPLE, we let me take the happy path, right? So we are able to figure out and we are able to return the results. Now let's say that DON is a new keyword and I'm not able to figure out in my any of my try node it exists, right? So what it will do is we will need to update our tries based on our searches, based on our keystrokes that our system is getting. Now whenever I'm kind of updating my try node, you're right, like I'm kind of updating, there could be some complexity here. I'm trying to read and update on the same try node. And the way how I would like to solve that is, before updating I'd like to have some sort of like a locking mechanism on this try to see, to make sure that no one reads from it when I'm doing a real update. So in that case, if the request lands on try node 3, and let's say this try node 3 has a write lock on it already, then I should be going to the next best server or next best try node where I'll be able to get some data, or I should be able to get it from my buddy here, right? Once the main try node gets updated, the lock will be released, and as soon as the lock gets released, the buddy should also be updated, right? Then the logs will go to the buddy, and that buddy server or the buddy try node will get updated, and that's how I'd like to kind of maintain the serializability.
So you're saying you will put a lock on your primary node, reroute your traffic to buddy, update primary, and again reroute back to primary and update buddy. And in
Yes.
between, if any one of them goes down,
So like if in like for example, like
but
when I'm up,
you made a lock on try node one,
yes,
and it goes and your buddy node is now serving your traffic, and it goes
correct.
down.
Okay, so like the way how I'd like to do an updates is based on like log mechanism, right? So anytime whenever I'm updating my try node, first I'd like to update my log, flush to the disk, correct? Let's say that that would be my first task. I'll give an example here. So let me take this pen. So the update request comes to this try node. I will say in my log, sorry, I'll say that I'm updating this particular keyword, or let's say that this particular request, right? And who is telling me to update it? It's coming from update try service, UTS, for our discussion, right? And this entire thing, I'm kind of flushing into the, uh, as soon as I lock it, I'll flush it to the disk. Now, let's say that during
Which
that,
disk? Uh,
sorry,
where is that disk?
This is being hosted on a machine, right? It will be hosted on a particular host or machine, correct? This try node. So
Uh-huh.
I will write this as, so similar to like what we have in a commit log, right? Commit log approach. So what I'll do is I will flush that I'm going to update this try service in a disk, and then I will try to update it. And meanwhile, if my service fails, we can have some sort of like a mechanism that will read this commit log and say what is the timestamp of it, and do we have this updated request or updated record in our try. If it is not there, then we immediately come to know that whatever the write operation we wanted to do did not successfully go through, correct? Then we can have some sort of like an another mechanism where we can send a request or send a heartbeat request to the update try service saying that, hey, I was not able to update it, and then later we can do some sort of like a write repair or a read repair. So, yeah, write repair, not the read repair one, but we can do the write repairs.
You're telling
So
this. I'm not followed 100%, but looks like this log file would be on the on the same node, right?
yes, on it should be on the same disk. Yes. uh,
Same.
it, if we are kind of having it on the same machine, and if let's say that if when my disk is on the same machine, yes, they will be on the
But
same
here the
node.
entire machine is gone.
So correct. So if the entire machine itself is gone, right? So if you say that the entire machine is gone, then we need to have some sort of like a mechanism where we are maintaining what try node we are updating and at what time. And after successful updates, we should get back some sort of like a result, right? So if I'm updating my try node, and if it is successful, then let's say that it will update my try service with 200 OK, and that has to be stored in somewhere or in some other sort of like a data store, right? And if I'm not getting the 200 OK, then that means that particular try node update didn't go through completely, or that entire machine is down. So what I'll do is I will re-trigger it in my next scheduled interval, maybe after next 30 seconds or after next 2 minutes. And if it successfully fails every configurable m number of times, then we can kind of trigger an alert or notification that will be sent to the, let's say, some sort of site reliability engineering team, who will kind of can look into it, what really is happening there.
Okay. Okay. I think in the interest of time, I have to wrap up this discussion. Do you want to mention anything or anything on your mind which you want to share? I think we just have like more like 2-3 minutes. That's it.
Yeah, sure. So I just want to go over this functional requirements, right? So we told that we'll be matching the 5 top results based on the count, and that count will be part of my try, right? And that count will be with the help of this incrementing service that we'll be keeping track of for every keyword. And we also discussed that it should be highly available, and we have like a multiple redundancy and etc. So one thing I didn't talk about was about having a load balancer in front here that can actually distribute the load, and the same load balancer or a similar load balancer can be used even here between the web server and the try node. So what if this try node itself goes down, right? So having redundancy here will also help. And then this try node we can also have some sort of like a CNAME or a virtual IP kind of a thing, and a load balancer between this try node service and try nodes. So that's one thing. So all of them can be like horizontally scaled, and each of them can be individually deployed in different environments, right? So
Mhm.
that will help in kind of development in a help in parallel development. So these were some of the things that I wanted to touch base. And I thought that I wanted to talk about one more called like a knowledge graph, which is heavily used nowadays in the search engines. But I think I'll be taking more time, so I just don't want to stop it in there in between.
Mhm.
But there is something like a knowledge graph. So I'm not sure these days Google and anything are using like a try node. They are using like a knowledge graph. So when you type DON, right, you actually hit Donald as a node, and that node will actually be linking to other nodes like where he stays, what's the occupation, etc., right? So it's like a knowledge graph, and the traversal happens to the knowledge graph these days. I'm very much would be surprised if Google still would be having some sort of like a try node, but I'm not completely sure of that as well. So that's one more thing I wanted to bring out. Yeah, that's from my side.
Okay. Thank you, Aditya. It was nice
Just
chatting with you, and thank you.
thanks, Asim. So I'll just stop sharing my screen.
No, I think you can still share your screen, so it would help
Okay,
people to comment or give any
sure,
uh,
sure.
recommendation or feedback.
Mhm. Thank you, Asim, and thank you, Adi. So now let's open it up to the audience. See, like if they have any feedback to share. Like I think at high level, you both did a good job. So anyone from audience, like if I have some feedback, I can share now or a little later. Like I was just thinking if somebody wants to start sharing their feedback. Okay, let me at least start giving some feedback so that like other people also can jump in. later. One thing which I noticed, Adi, is like when you're defining, I think the way you started defining functional and non-functional, and you started like differentiating between those two flows, and those are all good. But like when Asim pointed you to define some criteria, so like you took some time to realize that, and you still wrote that, but from my point of view, it could have been done better. For example, you defined like a most recent heavily searched. Those two are like some of the strong keywords, right? Like when you say most recent, like do you consider the searched words only within the past few hours, or like past day? That was not defined,
Okay.
and that was not discussed anywhere. And when you said like heavily searched, are you like that was also not defined? What do you mean by heavily searched? Are you going to take any search terms with count greater than 1,000 or like 10,000? Because like at the Google scale, like you have so many searches, like most of them may be less than 1,000. Do you want to consider storing that in your auto suggestion?
Okay.
So those two definition, like if you could have done like that, would have added much better weight. That is my opinion. And on the assumptions, like I think you made some assumption, but like on like not using the personalization, that is fine. And when you discussed about the numbers, I think you just straight away went to the 3,000 QPS. That's okay. I mean, like it's a straight forward assumption, but like it would be better to show like on what basis that QPS was arrived. Like, are you expecting like 1 billion searches a day, or like what's your peak time? What's your there could be some peak times and some special scenarios, right? Like I didn't see that being discussed. And on the data structure point, like you discussed twice, I think that is, I mean, like obviously um, the best choice here. But on discussing like the different nodes and all, like I mean, like I didn't fully listen, but like um, um, overall, like I felt like you added a good high level flow, but like you could have taken some good use cases to see like how different use cases behave. Maybe like Asim can add more points up there. I mean, like I fully didn't spend some time on what basis you are making certain decision.
Sure, Naga. That's good. Like I made a note of these things where I need to improve. So yeah, that's definitely helpful. Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. There is like so much thing that you can talk, but like it obviously depends on what interviewer wants you to divert.
Yeah.
So there are so many ways this can go. Like yeah. I'm opening to the audience. Like anybody else have certain feedback?
Hey, this is Vivek. Before like Asim goes, I wanted to add a few quick things. So thanks, Naga. I think your feedback was spot on. Couple of things to point out. First is actually on Asim's interview style. I think it was fantastic. You had I think the candidate was like well versed in the topic and knew what to do and how to do it, and was going all over the place to some extent, right? So as an interviewer, it's your job to collect the right kind of data set. So you did a very good job of prompting and pushing people into the right forum and things like that. So I think it was definitely a well executed interview from your side. Like if you didn't do that, then I think this interview would have been very like it could have been disastrous. Like the candidate could have run away with the interview process, and you would not have collected the data you needed. So I think super good job there. It's definitely one of the well executed interviews. Uh, it's a difficult one from that perspective because of like there's a lot of divergence in where you want to go and where the candidate wanted to take it. So that was one. Good job again. The second thing I actually wanted to point out was like, I think for Adi's point is, I think the overall, I think it was a good interview. I liked it. I like the discussion. I like the conversation. You definitely were able to impress on the audience and on the interviewer, your knowledge and awareness of things. But I'm a little concerned about your, like, the focus is not there. Like, I mean, the intent of the interview is to come up with a design, a working design, which has all the bells and whistles afterwards. And it looks like the focus was more on the bells and whistles and more on, I think this is like, you need to put a show for the interviewer, but at the same time, the focus is not on the bells and whistles, but it's on the main course. So I think you may want to rethink how you want to structure your interview, especially this is like a fantastic use case for you, right? You knew exactly what the problem was. You knew exactly what things you wanted to impress on, but I think the systematic progress was not there. Like I didn't see as much of it. And that was like a big, like, negative factor in the interview. Definitely, like knowing all of the factors that were there in terms of, like, how to do it, how it's done in the real world, how do search engines use it. You had all of those things in place, but I think you underplayed your hand is what I felt. Like, or rather you tried to overplay it upfront, and that essentially did not land as effectively as it could. In my mind, a much better answer would be to just walk with saying, like, let's start from the first principles. Here's the basic requirement, and then we just go through the basic requirement, and then we talk about here is what I want to do, and here is how I want to design this, and then you want to add the layers of complexity on top of it. So that is like one element. The second major feedback I have, this is not just for you, but for everyone who's trying to do mock interviews, is do it and don't say what you're doing of sorts. Like, in the sense, like, don't say that, let me talk about requirements gathering first, and then you gather requirements, right? That is not a right way of doing it, because you're not like that. That's not the right focus, right? You should just do the requirement gathering. Ask clarifying questions. You shouldn't start saying, like, now let me go draw the high level design document. There's not like high level design diagram. Don't say that. Like, if you watch the video again, and once the recording is up there, you will notice that almost every step you've been saying, like, first I'll do this, then I will do this, then I will do this, then I will do this. And then you go back and then start doing that part of it seemed a little, I think you were making assumptions about how the interview will go. And when Asim like repointed you to different directions, none of your plans made sense, right? All the plans you put in front were actually all over the place, because Asim wanted something else. And that was like I think that was definitely jarring in terms of the interview. And I don't think it negatively impacted your assessment. Like, if I were to rate you or assess you, I wouldn't ding numbers for that, but then you could have been a lot more impressive if you had not done that particular aspect of it that way. So those were my pieces of feedback.
Okay, sure, Vivek. Like, I have one question once this
yeah,
all.
I just wanted to, go ahead, Adi. I have a couple of points.
Yeah, so like, for instance, like Asim was asking about the hash base, right? So that's one point where I felt that I was not having that answer correctly, and I was struggling there. So system design is just like a vast topic, and sometimes a candidate will not be having any right answer, right? So how do we cope up this in the interview? Like, if I don't know something, is it better to say that I'm not completely aware of it, or how can we come out of that tricky situation? Like, Asim tried to corner me on this solution, right? How do you actually calculate the hash, and how do you make sure it lands on the same try node? And there I felt that I was struggling.
Yeah, I think you clearly had a misfire in terms of hashing and the try nodes, and that was like a clear thing. And I don't think you realized it even till the end. And Asim just said, like, yeah, you know what, move on, and then he just moved on, making a note that you know what, you're uncomfortable with that particular topic. I'm fairly certain that's what he has done. Now, in such things, right, the interview is not expected to be a way of trying to extract what is in your head. There is no expectation that you would have seen this question before, or seen this problem, or this sort of a problem before. So the idea is that you should be doing, like, collaborative problem solving as a part of the system design exercise. That is the expectation. Now, in many cases, given that we're all preparing well, you would probably know the question upfront. And if you do, then don't skip steps and then take a step back and then essentially go through the collaborative problem solving exercise. Just knowing the fact that you know how this is done, right? It's like, you know how this works. I mean, think of it like a a math problem where you need to calculate something, the area of something or something else, and then you know the procedure that how you do it. You do the multiplication, then you do the integration, and then you do some addition or whatever, right? You know the sequence of steps, and you are trying to walk the other person through the sequence of steps. It is not a good idea to simply say answer is 42 at the end of the story, right? Because the intention in the interview is to get that thought process and how you're logically mapping it. Now, if you know the concept well upfront, then you're not really brainstorming. You're not really doing any probabilistic thing. You're not saying like, I can do A, B, or C. Let me try A. Then I'll try B. You know what? A is not working, so I should try B or something like that. So that reasoning and that thought process is what the interviewer is wanting to see. So they will try to push you into some area where you're uncomfortable so that you can do that thing. Specifically saying, you know what, like you said, hash map, right? I think, I don't want to speak on behalf of Azim, but in this case, if you had simply come back and said, you know what, I think hash map was a terrible idea, I shouldn't do it. Because it's not like, because it causes more trouble than it's worth. And that would have been like a very positive feedback for you because you had no idea how to use this. You had an intuition that hash map would work, which is fine. And your intuition was wrong, but you had the wherewithal to actually go back and say that intuition, I'm going to disregard that intuition primarily because I have gone through the steps and made sure that this is not like the right thing. So let me try something else. And whatever that something else would be the next part of the equation. So that thought process is what I am trying to look at as an interviewer. And I'm sure like that's what Asim was aiming for. Like, because when I heard him say, yeah, let's move on, I thought like, what, he had given up on your, ability to figure out that this hashing is not the right thing at that point of time. So that would be my feedback. I think it's again a process thing. Just like go through the decision making, interviewing, like the requirement gathering, problem solving, high level design, low level design. So there's like a sequence of steps. And if you haven't looked at it, I think Naga has a video on like I think 9 or 10 steps of design, system design. It was an in-person class in one of the Seattle sessions. But you definitely, it's available on video. Watch it. I think that's like a fantastic, it just walks you through all the steps and internalizing that will definitely help.
Sure. I'll take care of that way. Thanks for the feedback.
Awesome. There was one more question. I don't know if it was for me though.
Sujit.
Yeah, I was actually, thanks Vivek, the points. I have actually noted few points. So one thing is that like on the system design, I'll just start with the improvements and then we'll go to the good parts. So one thing what I observed that the functional requirement, we just noted down a couple of functional requirements and straight away we just go to non-functional requirement. So normally what happens, right? Like in a design interview, the interviewer is actually focusing primarily into the functional requirements, right? That actually maybe it will be 80 and 20 because of the time constraint, right? And then whenever you are jumping, because that second line, okay, how to get those results. So I believe we need to spend a little bit more time to brainstorming about that, because in this system, the non-functional requirements are, we know that, like it has to be available, scalable, but what are the functional requirements, right? So the second thing, like as this is a known problem, sometimes, we try to solve the problem without knowing what to solve the problem, right? Because we are having like going to the data structure, I think that should be the last thing, right? Why we are choosing a try, not versus X, right? Because we know try is a structure, because if we are going and starting a company in the day one, like why try, right? I mean, there could be a better way, and we have to making sure that we are putting that justification on the data structure. Yes, we know it will be try, but I believe that is one point, and we just need to wait. I believe it just suggested by very quickly that okay, we need to go to the try, right? Let's wait for that and gather the requirements. And I think Asim did a really good job that because how does that work, right? How to bring the personalization, and also the scale of the problem. We mentioned that it is going to be across the region. So some of the signals from the search also we need to take, right? Location or something, right? So that we can at least find out some of the patterns. But yes, like that is, one of the point. And the other thing is that, solidifying the requirements, which is very clear. Like in this case, we just have two, which can be little bit more, like which came later in the design. And the other thing is that, like whenever the detailed design was going, and I think Vivek, you mentioned the right thing, we are just going to very broad land, right? Oh, we need to add multiple nodes, to add the cache. All these things are good. But what actually, I believe Asim, mentioned clearly, let's solve a smaller problem, right? If your smaller problem set is very solidly defined and architecturally good, then you can scale. Otherwise, if the small set, one web server, one application server does not, because, your server can crash and even two server can crash, your data center can crash, right? Are you going to shut down your business? May not be, right? I mean, all these things are good, like which got added very quickly. And Asim actually did, drag back to that point. But by that time, Aditya actually went way ahead, like basically there almost 15 to 17 minutes. We just discuss about the scalability aspect, right? And later we come back and discuss about, how to do that and how to do the hashing and, like whatever about that particular solution. So that is, one part, but yeah, I mean, so these are the, at least whatever, like, because the problem is very narrowly focused and we just need to solve that part and later say that, okay, we can add a cache. And I think the interviewer pretty well knows, right? Yes, something can be cached or something can be stored, but how to solve the problem in a smaller aspect is important. Yeah, so those are the parts, but the good parts are, one of the things I saw that you have a very good handling on the system design concepts, right? Like basically, getting the cache, getting the DB, getting the load balancer, and you mentioned some of the concepts like the cache theorem and other things. Yes, sometimes we do not wanted to hear the jargons because, why, let's deal with the smaller problem, right? Before even we scale up, because that's how the business starts and they grow. Nobody starts with thousands of server, but at least, you have the good aspect on the overall, like the system design, and that, right? You have a web server, you have application. Okay, you can mention about the load balancer. What will happen if there will be a, like a caching implements, and these are the concepts which actually good, right? To know about the designing, and your communication is really good. You have a very command on the communication, like when you are basically on the driver mode, most of the time, which is good, but sometimes, right, that actually take you so far ahead compared to what actually interviewer wants. But in this case, right, you slow down a little bit, rather than, jumping on the different island. Let's explore the one particular land and see what is there, right? And I think, yeah, I mean, those are the good things. And also, yeah, so basically, writing the requirements, which is also another good thing that whenever we go, right, you choose, okay, let me write down the requirements. So that's also a good part. Is like some improvements can be done, but that's the other part that, we just need to bring our brain to focus to those points, right? Because otherwise we can jump it. Yes, there could be some improvement. What I mentioned, that there could be more points added on the functional requirement, like which actually came later. Hey, how are we going to deal with, if there is a maximum heat, like personalization, right? How to sorting them, what basis we need to sort them. Yeah, I think, yes, those are my, inputs. But overall, it was a really great interview. I mean, both of like Asim did a fantastic job to really come and watch you, where to go, and then bring you back to the spot so that it can be wrapped up within the time, right? Because we do not have much time in a real interview. Yep.
I can add my feedback now.
Sure.
Aditya, you want to add something to Sujit first?
No, I'd like to say thanks for like detailed feedback. That really helps.
Okay, cool. So Aditya, my feedback would be in 3 parts: things you did good, things you could take to the next level, and things you should continue doing. So to start with, can we switch to your requirements first? the Google Doc. Okay, thank you. So things which you did good, like you followed the structure, like generally we talk about have kind of a template like functional requirements and non-functional requirements, and then talk about what kind of approach you could want to take. And then you had this overall your high level diagram, and you thought about like a distributed system. Like you had different components, I will say different microservices you talk about, like, okay, this component would be doing, this component would be talking to DB, and this component would be doing this stuff. So that was really good. Like it gives the impression like, hey, you think about like microservices, distributed systems, and let's give a impression like that. Like, you know, when to scale, how to scale, and which component and where exactly that, and when you want to bring in cache. So that was all good. But now if I have to tell you like how you can take this to the next level, a couple of things which I feel, again, this is my personal observation, and if I have to do something different, I would also try to do the same thing. So uh, take in that way. So what I felt uh, on your communication side, it was you have a good command, but I was not getting too much time to speak myself. So I have to interrupt you and get my point. So that is something on the interviewer side also does not want like to interrupt a candidate. So it should be like a very casual communication. I think in that way you are talking to a best friend and trying to solve a problem, or you are in a beer bar and on a beer, like you're talking about, okay, this is something, what do you think, I'm going in the right direction, or these are my functional requirements, do you want me to consider something else, and is this most recently heavily is some, it's like I have this point of view. And then when you go to non-functional requirements, you can also talk about, okay, these things I'm thinking, do you think like anything else should be needed here? And when you made an assumption, you made yourself, that is fine. But you can if I would be at your place, I could have been done in like a very diplomatic fashion. Hey, I'm thinking like to make this assumption, do you think that makes sense right now? Because I want to make come up with this design first, and then worry about all the add-ons like personalization, previous browsing history looks important to me, but I'm not putting them in this scope right now. And the other thing, like if I have to do, I always ask with the customer, like who's my customer, for whom I'm building, and then automatically these things comes really natural. Like if XYZ is my customer, how many times they would be hitting my service, and and these are the things which I consider on this at this phase. And when you talk about try, then like I think a couple of people mentioned, give some rational. Like if I would be at your place, I'll say, oh hey, I think I'm going to deal with a lot of strings. Looks like I can bring try here, and which could be appropriate data structure here to get started. What do you think? Like you want to explore some other way, or I can go ahead with try. So I will say, okay, yes, if you want to invest time and try first, let's do it. Or I could say in a different direction, no, 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 I don't want try. I know how to solve with try. I want to see something different. So that time itself, you can get a signal like, okay, where the interviewer wants to go, in what direction. Let's go to the design, other sketch. Yeah. So here, what I felt at some point, it became a one-way direction communication. Like you are going with your flow. That was fantastic. But you can clearly see I got lost somewhere, because you mentioned somewhere, hey, I spoke about this thing in the start, but you see I completely lost it because your flow is going really fast for me, and I lost track of that at some point of time. And then I have to bring you back. Hey, okay, uh, I don't want to go in that direction now. Let's only focus to this direction, and let's talk about this thing. So I think bring either you can slow down, or just see like because I think you asked like, are you with me? I think there could be a better way of asking, like, hey, do you think like I should explore this area now? Shall I talk about my incremental components, or shall I focus on this area or I shall focus on this area? So you will get some signal like where the interviewer wants you to head. Like I can say, okay, let's first complete your increment service. Or I'll say, no. Okay, I got an idea like how you will do your increment thing. Let's focus on your how the search will happen and then come back to increment. So that will give you signals like which direction the interviewer wants to go. There could be two different interviewers want to go in two different directions. But it's important for us like to see like which direction the interviewer wants. So that will help you to give enough data points to the interviewer which he or she wants to collect. And mhm. Okay, and other thing I think in the requirements you could have talked about the latency numbers, like how quick it should be, because most of the systems are really good with design, but they all fail when they could not handle the operations. Like the response times are so bad, or we couldn't even meet our customer requirements. So these latency numbers should also help. Like, okay, I want the results in 1 millisecond. That will again give you a signal like, hey, I want something really efficient memory-based data structure. I don't want a lot of round trips to database to compute things. So that again can give you some more signals like which direction you want to go. And if I would be you, I would not mention at the end about knowledge graphs, because you did a fantastic job. Let's say you spoke about try. I'm convincing that then I'm getting a point. Hey, Google itself would not use try. They would go with knowledge graph. I'll say, oh my God, like, okay, what we did was not enough, and that could go against a candidate. That's what I'm trying to mention. Like if you did a good job, then say, okay, that's a good job. And but you can say like, okay, I think the alternate could be knowledge thing, but mentioning like Google itself will not use try could be, I don't know, like I felt like it could be avoided at this point of time. And overall I felt you are quite vocal. That is actually a good part. Like if an interviewer itself is going blank, that is also not a good signal. So you are vocal, you know the context, you know how to orchestrate your communication talk. Only thing is we have to bridge some gaps. That's it. And
Okay.
you have your template, you have your flow, you know things you are doing, you know distributed systems. So keep continuing on that. And I think take this feedback as a just as improvement points. That's it from my side.
Sure. Thanks, Asim. Thanks. It was really good, actually. I know that sometimes I talk more, and that's something which I should work on. That's why I kind of usually ask, "Are you with me?" But yeah, I know sometimes I get carried away too much. That's something which I should work
So
on my
there is
side.
two different things. Are you with me? And I'm going in the right direction. Because if you ask me, are you with me? I will say, yes, I know what you're talking. I'm like hearing what you are saying. But if I have to rephrase, I could say like, hey, do you think like I'm going in this direction? Shall I continue this path, or you want me to explore a different path?
Okay.
And
Okay.
have your transitions like, okay, when you're done with one phase and now you have a transition phase, use it appropriately. Like, okay, when if you're done with your read part and now you're going to your write part, then have a transition and have some pauses and buffer where interviewer can chime in. Because I was not getting enough space to talk myself. So finally, then I decided, okay, I should interrupt now, which as a person, I don't want to interrupt somebody's talking or speaking. But then I thought, okay, no. Now I have to interrupt. Like otherwise, there is no way for me to cover everything.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Correct. Sure. Sure, Asim.
There is one thing just if I can add. I noticed like I like that aspect that towards the end when Asim said, we have 2-3 minutes left, and if you want to wrap it up and add anything. And I think Aditya went back to the functional requirements and he tried to, kind of check mark, like we covered this aspect and we covered that. So I think it was a good idea, like given the last 2-3 minutes, rather than digging into some component and trying to optimize it. Like let's go back to our given requirements and see if we covered what all we covered and what got missed from a wrap-up point of view, I like that. No, I mean,
Yeah.
in general, if that's what people expect, I don't have that experience, but just hearing it out makes sense to me.
But it could go a little tricky also. Let's say we couldn't complete, or it should be very honest what I will feel. That okay, if you couldn't cover something, just say, oh, we couldn't cover, or I don't know if that could go
Yeah,
negative.
I mean to say, like in the last 2 minutes, if we start going to defining something, first of all, and then suddenly it's like a stop, right? It's like dropping things suddenly, like coming to a halt, versus making it more, kind of a, I don't know what the word for it, but it's more like a nice wrap up, right? Trying to match what was expected from you and where you are. You may not have covered all the requirements, but just polishing it or just finishing it up on that note made more, like it seemed more systematic to me. That aspect.
Yeah, so I kind of like saw this in one of the YouTube videos where they talk that yeah, you have your all skeleton, like what you want to talk, etc. Like, but you should also come back and see what all you have
Yeah.
and what all you have not met. Right? So that's the like strategy I used there.
Right.
And I think that is a good strategy. Only I think why I said tricky, if something is not solved, then don't force it. Like I've solved that. I think that's it.
Yeah, definitely. You don't want to. Yeah.
And on the conclusion part, like it's also good to mention, like when you're wrapping up, or like even little before. So it's good to discuss what your system can accomplish. I mean, like both the pros and cons. So cons is basically the bottlenecks where it is still lagging, and where you're thinking that it should be improved going forward. Because you should know what your system, like where it can fail and where it can do better. So it's kind of part of the bottlenecks, right? Trade-offs, what your system is, what designed for, and what it is not doing. So,
and I think if you see right now with this all virtual thing, verbal communication is the key now, because we can't see each other body language.
Yeah.
You can't see the other person, oh no, what this guy is doing, or like you can't see the other person. Or or if it is on the webcam also, you would be focusing on your design, like not switching between webcams. So I think verbal communication became like a hot spot here. So I think it's for everyone. Like if we are doing this virtual interviews, we need to practice a bit here now, because we can't rely on body language.
That is true. Definitely.
So how would you handle, we handle the most recently heavy search? And like, also like, kind of trend keyword right now?
So yeah, trend is basically, if you see any recent trends, you basically filter out based on the recent time, right? Like, for example, like if Twitter, how it brings, like it's based on today's statistics, right? Like if something is trending today, it's based on like how many people are tweeting on certain topic, or like using like a hashtag on certain things. So it's basically within the last few hours or within the past day. That's where you filter. So similarly, I think even the search terms in Google, I think they consider this recent search results. And also, like since they do the personalization, if you already have Google logged in, like in your browser, so since they have all your searches available, I mean like stored, so they'll know like when you are typing what you could search for. So they'll more personalize the search experience for you. And
So
also,
have you defined the window? Like, this hotkey in
I think
the
for
last
trending,
5
window
hours.
helps. Yeah, but for personalization, it's more of your entire history and yeah, I mean, like it also depends on like how many characters you have typed and how many other most searched items are there, and how many in the similar. Like for example, if you type certain topics and if you already searched for something, your searches also shows up by Google. So it's kind of combining both yours and other top heavily searched together.
So we need different data schema on.
Yeah, I mean, like definitely there is a
backend.
lot to define, like how this works. So that's why like those keywords, like it's good to define, like for example, for the purpose of interview, I think you may just define like whether you take it in the past day or like for a few hours, like you can make an assumption, but like it's good to define. And heavily searched means like, are you going to ignore all the frequencies like with less than count less than 1,000? So that will
Leon,
eliminate.
can you elaborate what do you mean by we need different schema? Why do we need a different schema?
Because I think now it's not only based on the count, but also based on a window at certain location
Okay.
too. Because let's say when people let's say search for earthquake in my area, and it happened recently, then it have become first, right? But people search for earthquake on different area, then it could come a different.
So here is like there are like a couple of concepts here, right? So we are talking about three different angles. So first angle is essentially personalization. The second angle is time domain, which is basically recency, like trending right now or something like that. And the third angle is essentially geographic. So where you are talking about an incident that is happening in a particular geography, like it could be a fire in a particular place, or it could be earthquake in a particular place, or something like that, right? So there are three different aspects of it. Now, regardless of what you have, the output is exactly the same. The input is the same and the output is the same, right? The input is still the keyword and the output is still a list of keywords, correct? So I think you'll end up having a very similar try-like structure with the entire design concepts that we've discussed so far. Those things will hold good, but how you update the data and how you keep the data consistent is the one that will be changing. Like specifically on the time domain one, the way I have seen it done is essentially every time a keyword is searched, you increment the counter, like whatever the increment service that Adi was talking about, you increment it. But then after 1 hour, you decrement half the value. And then after like 24 hours, you decrement like quarter the value. And after like 1 week, you decrement all of it or something like that. So that way there is like a time decay, and that automatically takes care of most recently ones will be trending first. And then if something happened like more than an hour ago, that will be only worth half the number of searches. So you can do something like that, which is like essentially a sliding window that you talked about. For localization, what I have seen typically be done is that you will build these tries and hash maps and whatever else based on the geography that you're looking at. So if you divide your country into different segments, or the world into different fractions or whatnot, you would have different tries being constructed for each geography. Or you would essentially have like a global try, and then on top of that you'll have like a local modifier, and then which is the same thing for personal as well. So you would have a global search list, but then you'll also have a personal modifier. At the end of the day, everything is based on weights, right? So whichever thing has greater weight will show up as output. So I don't see a schema difference, but I see an algorithm difference in how it is. So that's why I just wanted to make sure that when I hear you say schema, what you exactly meant.
I see. Yeah, there's a different strategy to put like which one have a higher weight, what term have a high weight to return. Okay.
Right, and that doesn't change the schema, because the schema is like the input is the same, the output is the same. Like there is the context is a little different, and that is what I don't think there is a schema difference in this particular case.
Yeah.
Naga, sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
No, that's good answer. Thank you. Yeah, the second question I have, like when Asim was asking when when use the hash key and they keep going to the same partition, what would be approach for that? Because I think Adi didn't answer that question, right? Can we switch back to the diagram?
Yeah, honestly, like even I am trying to still understand. Like I figured it out that hash should work, but whatever Asim pointed out, that's something which even I need to look at it. I'll try to figure out if there is a hash-based solution for this to identify which try node we can go. And if at all I'm getting some details, I'll share it with you all in the Discord channel so that everyone is aware of it.
So I think you're already splitting, like when you said like try node 1 is A to D, what does it mean?
So it's essentially in the all the keywords, right? Like this particular try
starting with A to D, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So then now like
but the thing, if we do with just A to D, right? What if a particular term, right? For here I'm doing A to D, here I'm doing E to M, right?
Okay.
If E itself has like a lot of data, right? So we are kind of stressing this host or node.
So it's a hotspot. It became a hotspot. So you need to again shard.
Evenly distribute the data.
Yeah.
Yeah. The best thing is to evenly distribute, right? Like, and one solution that I kind of thought of was using partition, but like, yeah, whatever Asim pointed out here, that's something which even I don't have answer right now, and that is where I kind of like lagged there.
Okay, maybe if you don't want to do this A to D, like this is a range-based partitioning, right? If you don't want to do this, the other partitioning, which is good in most cases, is consistent hashing. So you just randomly compute the hash and pick some last 4 digits, and like out of those 10, randomly computed hash is always same for a certain keyword. Like APP always gives the same hash because it's one way, right? So,
No, but
it always goes to the same server.
Yeah, but it essentially go to the same.
Oh, yeah. So now, correct.
No, if I think now A, so it has to compute everything which starts from A. So it technically has to go to still all the servers and find if A has B and give me, and then somewhere we have to execute also.
Yeah, you have to do some aggregation in that case. Yeah, correct.
Because I won't be sending APP. I would be sending, I can send APP, I can send A also, I can send AP also.
So if we going to have to go to different server, then I thought the purpose was to reduce the duplicate and then make it faster, right? Now, if we have A on every let's say on different server, we have to go scatter and gather and find which one has
fine.
APP.
One server could have AB, one server could have AC. Then if I send A, I think then it has to go all the servers and find what starts with AB, AC, and then do aggregation.
Yeah. So the problem, like if we use a consistent hashing, so then the same word could end up like each time it gets inserted into certain nodes, certain tries. One time it can go to the one of the try node, other time it can go to the other node, depending on the length of the word and I think, yeah, if the word is same, I think it always goes to the same server. But like for searching matches, you basically make a parallel calls to all the try nodes, find all the matching results, get the relevant counts, and there should be some aggregating server which takes care of filtering the top 5 and then return back to the request or whatever. But like considering all this latency, like it's like most of the times I think it's pre-computed and stored for depending on whichever is the top search keywords or range.
Have we discussed this particular question as an interview question in any of the design sessions?
No, I think this is the first time we are doing in a mock interviews. I think
Not just in a mock interview, but like, I mean, in the normal design session that we have, right? Maybe this is a good topic to discuss because I think there are a lot of variations, and
yes, correct.
and it has like a lot of aspects here. I mean, we are kind of only touching upon the highlights at
Yes,
this point of
yes.
time, but Lion has a point. I actually don't think hash map is the right approach. Like, you cannot use a hash map to distribute the load on the try, primarily because like once whatever strategy you use, right? Like if the keyword was Apple, then it has to increment A, it has to increment AP, it has to increment APP, APPL, and APPLE. It has to do all of that. And that will essentially go to 5 different servers if you use any hashing mechanism, which is like random, unless you put everything in one place, in which case you have hotspot problems. So there is like a lot of good discussions to be had here. I would recommend putting this in like one of the topic discussions in any of the upcoming sessions, and somebody can figure it out.
Okay, thanks, Vivek. We will do that. Any other things to be
Probably if
discussed?
somebody is interested for next week could talk about that.
I think next week Abhishek wants to talk about this Amazon Dynamo paper.
Okay. I thought I saw somewhere in the chat you mentioned we're looking for the next week.
Yes. I mean, like he just pinged me, but like he didn't confirm. But like, yeah, if there is anybody, any volunteers for picking,
I can talk about this topic as well. We can discuss this.
Okay.
So which topic you are trying to pick?
Autosuggestion, like the design of autosuggestion.
Okay, designing auto. Okay. Nice. But initially, your idea was DynamoDB paper.
Yeah.
Not DynamoDB. I think it's Amazon Dynamo paper, which is.
Okay, something.
Which is, yeah, I think Amazon is mostly building most of its systems using that concept, like Amazon Dynamo. So, and even Cassandra was built on based on similar lines, and many other.
Okay, up to you, Abhishek. How you want to do? If you think it will be 2 hour session. If you want, like it could be split. That is also fine.
Yeah. No, I think let's focus on one thing.
One specific. I think the discussions will anyway take 2 hours. I think. So, yeah.
And yeah. So basically, because we have discussed this thing, autosuggest. So I think it would be better to discuss about this in the next session.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay. Nice. Okay. Any other feedback? If not, like we can close it. We little early.
Well, one thing, Naga, you might want to ping Shobit to see if we can get this mock interview up in the YouTube earlier than Abhishek's session. Then we can make people watch this, and we can build on top of this as opposed to coming from the scratch.
Yeah. So yeah, I'll ping Shobit right after this session, like once we are done.
Yeah, the other feedback I have is like at the beginning, we can zoom, ask the interviewer to zoom, so I'll increase the font size so it's easier to see, right? Because sure, I can do it on my Zoom, but if I have a low quality, and that's not good. And second, we upload to the video, if the text is small, it's not good for the viewer.
Okay. Thanks, Leon. Okay. I think if there's no other, I can stop and we can continue to chat for a few more minutes as needed. Thank you, Asim and Adi, for this week's mock interview. It was wonderful. And Adi, please take the feedback as constructive. I think we all learn together as a community. So,
No worries about that. It's really helped me. It definitely helps me, and I will also try to come up with some topic that we can discuss later. And I can also play some role play for interviewer as well. So I will get in touch with you, Naga and Asim, after some time, maybe this week, to go over the details.
yeah, sure. That sounds good. That'll be wonderful. So,
Sure. Thank you. Thanks, guys.
yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll stop there.